In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about markers with the use of punishment and why I'm not a fan of it and why I don't think you should use markers in punishment either. But before I get into that, I should talk a little bit about myself. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Anthony Holcomb. I'm a certified dog trainer in Tucson, Arizona. I've been training dogs professionally for the last 13 years, spending most of my time and effort focusing on helping pet owners with their unruly or aggressive dogs. I also spent quite a bit of time in the protection sports as well. I was a certified helper and a certified decoy. Not doing too much of that these days, but I did spend some time there, and I think it's worth noting. Now that you know a little bit about me, let's get right into the video. So why am I not a fan of using a punishment marker in dog training with the use of punishment? Well, before I get into that, I just want to kind of remind you guys that if you watched our video on markers that we put up a little bit ago, you'll understand that markers as a whole facilitate faster learning. The Brelands pioneered this. They were famous for this. It kind of made its way into dog training, and now it's very, very popular these days for dog trainers to use markers in their training. So if you've heard of a clicker, or if you've ever heard someone say yes to their dog before they reward them, they're using markers. And it's very, very, very common in the context of rewards. But we can do the same thing with punishment as well. If my dog is barking through the window, and if let's just use this as an example. Let's say the dog does not like a squirt bottle. We know because we tried it a couple times, and every time we pull the squirt bottle out, the dog stops barking, right? Let's just say as an example, we've established that. Well, I can start to use a marker here, and I could say no before I squirt the dog with water. And if I go no and I squirt and no and squirt with enough pairings, no will actually have some meaning to the dog. But no doesn't have meaning to the dog right away. The dogs don't automatically know what no means. Dogs are associative learners, and for all intents and purposes, our words are nothing more than noise to the dog. It's just chatter that they don't understand. And we have to give our words meaning. So if you've ever told your dog to stop doing something and you've scolded them or tried to discipline them, and you're constantly saying no, and the dog continues to do what they're doing, no has no meaning to that dog, right? And so you have to give it meaning through the use of something the dog does not like. And in this example, it's the squirt bottle, okay? Now the squirt bottle, for most dogs out there, it's hit or miss. The dog's either gonna hate it or they're gonna like it, right? But let's just say in this particular example, the dogs do not like it. And so I can squirt my dog for barking through the window, and they'll stop barking. And then I could say no, I could put no in front of that, and then the squirt bottle will follow. And with enough repetition, no will have a strong impact on the dog. However, the reason why I'm not a huge fan of this is because most people, when it comes to the use of discipline or punishment, not just with their dogs, but maybe their children or other people in the workplace, whatever the case may be. Many times people can become a little emotional when they're attempting to do this. And we know, at least I can tell you personally, I'm not a fan of being yelled at, right? It's just gonna make me resent you a little bit more. But it's really normal for us as human beings. We're emotional creatures, and it's important to understand that we do this either unconsciously or with intent. And for me, if we're kind of yelling at our dogs for any reason, we're probably engaging in a little bit of verbal abuse. And I'm not a fan of that. And most people aren't either. So my whole goal is to try to keep, when it comes to the use of punishment, my goal is to keep the emotional content out of punishment. And this is hard to do for a lot of people. It's easy to get frustrated, especially if your dog isn't listening to you. We can get incredibly frustrated and we can start to yell, and then we can start to do things that we probably wouldn't do if we weren't angry, right? So my whole reason for keeping markers out of the use of punishment is for that reason in particular. I want to minimize the possibility of us engaging in verbal abuse with our dogs. That's the big reason, okay? But a couple of other small reasons is going to be the fact that a lot of times, even if we do a lot of training with our dog, dogs can get distracted by things, and dogs can ignore us. Even when they know what we're asking, they can make a conscious choice to actually ignore us. And when it comes to like maybe considering the use of punishment for something like aggression, the dog's probably not going to listen to us, right? Because that dog is dialed in on another dog. They're staring really hard at this other dog and they're loading up on adrenaline. And if the dog launches and we lose them to aggression, that's going to be a problem, especially if we're trying to yell at them or scold them or use a no marker, and we're trying to become dependent on this marker for the dog to stop doing an undesired behavior. This can be a real problem here. We go, no, no, and the dog just ignores us and launches into aggression, right? And now my dog is incredibly aggressive on the leash. Now I got to try to get my dog out of that, right? So that can be a real big problem, especially when we're trying to use punishment to discourage aggression. So for me, that's really huge, right? That's really huge. Like our dogs, big picture wise, they can have a tendency to ignore us. They're with a given dog, right? Every dog is a little bit different. This is incredibly dog dependent, but that is another reason why I'm not a huge fan of using verbal markers or punishment markers, is because our dog may not listen to us, right? So we know that dogs are associative learners, and if we understand the operant conditioning model, we know that most of the dog's interactions in life are happening through cause and effect, right? So we want to be real careful about our dogs ignoring us when we tell them to stop doing something. So that's another big reason. And those are probably the two big reasons, all in all, is like we want to keep the emotion out of our punishment, and we want to prevent the dog from learning that they can actually ignore us. So if your dog is barking through the window and you're going to squirt them with a squirt bottle to get them to stop barking through the window as someone passes by, don't say anything at all. Just go squirt the dog. And with enough repetition, they'll stop barking in the window if the dog doesn't like the squirt bottle enough. So that's all I got for punishment markers today. We hope you enjoyed the information. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like the video. And if you think someone may find this useful, definitely share it with them. Until the next time, we'll see you soon.